beer, a coffee if you're a non-alcohol drinker. That's totally cool. Anything, just grab yourself a drink and let's play some music and talk about music stuff and all of that good stuff. So I'm going to play some stuff for you today. I've got a bunch of questions to ask that people have asked that I'll answer. So it's a Friday night here. It's 8 o'clock in the evening on a Friday evening here in Wellington, New Zealand. So feels like the time to be having a glass of wine. I found this pretty cool ballad track. I'm going to play along to this in B minor. It's a fun one. Let's start there, eh? Let me know if you can hear everything okay. So I hope that's all coming through okay. Can people let me know if you're hearing this? I hope you are. I'm just actually going to check on here and let's have a look and see. Where are we? Who would this show up? Where's my channel? Oh, there we go. Hang on. View channel. Hopefully you can hear this. Let's turn the volume down on that before it goes crazy. Let me know if this is all coming through, because it could be you might not hear a thing, and that would be kind of a bummer. If anyone has any questions, then let me know in the chat. That'd be cool. I've got a bunch of questions here that people have asked about and different stuff that I thought I'd I could tilt that camera back a bit too, couldn't I? Looking at this. Let's try that. Sorry, extreme close up. Yeah, there we go. Okay, let's get to the questions. So I had a question here from Padraigk, Patrick K. Great content as always, Nick. Cheers. Oh, thank you, dude. If you're looking for an avenue of potential lesson ideas in the future, I think a lot of players like myself struggle with all the details involved with playing in our DAWs via direct input. Okay, so what a DAW is, for those that don't know, digital audio workstation, so recording platform on your computer. software. I use Logic Pro. That's one that I've been using. I've been using Logic since it was since the golden, since the Ice Ages. It's been a really great program. I used it since you have to pay a heap for it. Now it's 199 New Zealand dollars, and you just that's it, one-off payment. You got it. No subscriptions. I hate subscriptions. And direct input just means recording straight in. From finding and shaping decent DI tones. Okay, so DI, direct input. So if I'm going to plug a guitar direct in, the one I use is the Scuffham Amps S-Gear. That's a really good plugin. My friend Simon King put me onto that. Simon Peter King, if you look him up online, you'll see a heap of stuff of him showing about this different thing. But he put me onto the Scuffham Amps S-Gear 3, I think they're up to now. I use that if I'm going direct, just straight into the computer. And I plug into my audio interface and I go. I don't tend to record with that. I'd much rather record with the Fractal. I think it's a better quality modeler. Or, you know, with an amp, with one of these with the microphone on it. It's kind of funny that these are in shot for this stuff, isn't it? Because I'm not playing through these. They're really just they're just a prop when I'm doing these videos and what have you. Yeah, so the thing with getting a good DI tone is making sure that your guitar is like a good level coming in. Again, I hope people are hearing this. If you are, let me know in the chat. Yeah, getting a good level coming in. You want to aim for about -12, -6 dB, somewhere in that range. So it's sort of in there most of the time, right? If you're getting that, you get a good signal coming in, you'll get a good recording coming out. But if you don't get the right kind of signal coming down, it's too low or it's distorting. Worst thing you can have is have digital clip. That never sounds good, right? It's a huge challenge, especially for those of us who are cracking on with learning music theory and developing technical facility on our instruments. The tech side of being a musician is its own lifetime study. Yeah, totally. I had lunch today with a guy who's an electronic musician. He makes all kinds of loops. A very, very clever guy. Neil Crispin's his name. He teaches at one of the universities here. And he was telling me about all the stuff he's involved with. I mean, it's lifetime's work, really. As much work as I've put into playing this, he's put into electronic music. He was doing a piece of work where someone puts a headset on and they have a set of sounds and music that they hear, and then there's ambient sound in this particular room, and where you move around you get different experiences, but of course you got your direct sound with this helmet, and they were basing all the sounds off dust. Something I hadn't thought about. Apparently dust has a whole lot of DNA in it and all these different things. So they've been analyzing this and looking at it and creating sounds based off this. I mean, really fascinating, deep, heavy stuff, you know. So as much as I do for mine, so that's what he does with that. And you're right, it's a lifetime study in itself. High quality amp sims with great presets ready to go are of course amazing. Yes, they are. The S-Gear I use is really good. The Logic ones are fine. My friend Warren Mendonza, aka Blackstrap Blues. Warren uses one, I think it's called the NAMM Neural Amp Modeler. He raves about that one, about how good it is. I couldn't get it going on my system, otherwise I'd probably give that one a crack too. When I get it like a free few hours, which never happens, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to figure out how to run that one. He said, but it de-incentivizes people from learning about the fundamental concept which involves tone creation inside a DAW, which is limiting in the long term. Yes, I agree. One of the problems a lot of people have with DAWs and like creating music is they don't, and it's the same thing with the Fractal. I get a lot of people saying to me how amp-like my sounds are again. Now, the thing is, like, I think the reason for that is that I have a picture in my mind of what the guitar sound is I want to create. I've used the real things. This is as close as you'll get to a real Tweed Deluxe. I mean, the Victoria stuff is all hand-built, all point-to-point. He uses the same machine that winds the transformers that Fender used in the 60s, 50s and 60s, apparently. And I have a Bassman. I know what a Deluxe and a Bassman really sounds like. I've played through a bunch of old Supers. I've played through a bunch of old Twins, and I've played through new ones. I own a Mesa Boogie. I've owned Twins. What else have I owned? I've got a Revolver speaker rotating cabinet. I've had Marshalls, I've had all Mesa Boogies, I've had all that kind of stuff, so I know what the original sounds like, that when I go into the DAW, I know how to shape it. Because the gear doesn't matter. The thing is, like, it's what you do with it, isn't it? Now, that I know there's an irony in that I kind of demo gear and review gear and all that kind of stuff, but the gear really isn't the thing. It's like, I'll get any gear and I'll kind of manipulate it to get what I want out of it, because I have an impression in here of what I want to achieve. Now, some gear I can't do that. I mean, it's very hard to make a Les Paul sound like a Strat. It's just not going to happen. It's not fundamentally there. But some people, maybe they can. What does he say? If you have any thoughts on modifying presets to working with stock plugins, EQ planning tips, ideas to help us mix ourselves. Yes, I would. A couple of things I would say. Go and listen to some isolated guitar tracks. You'll probably be very surprised about how the guitar tone works. Van Halen, for example, what I thought the Van Halen sound, it wasn't really that. Because it's a mix of guitar taking these frequencies and bass taking these frequencies. When we hear it, we hear this range. But the guitar is really just that. The bass is down here, right? So when you hear the guitar on its own, from the original source tracks, not AI filtered ones, you go, oh, that's kind of what's going on with that. Right? And that's often the case. So go and listen to some really good ISO tracks and sort of get an idea for how those tracks really sounded, then try and recreate that. Most of the time too, you'll find that a lot of tracks are doubled or tripled, or like multiple layers of guitar parts, and that's what makes it sound huge. So that's what I would say. What my favorite thing to do when I record guitar tracks, I'll record one left, one right, both mono. So a left mono, a right mono, and then a different guitar right down the middle. So like if you're thinking about different guitars, 2 Les Pauls on the side and a Tele down the middle. Or, it could be this on either side and then this guitar, whichever, whatever guitars you have. But that makes a huge sound. The Tele has all that sparkle and the Les Pauls have all that mid-range weight. So that's one thing you could try. And you can do that virtually in your computer or whatever. Yeah, I thought it'd be interesting to hear your thoughts on this stuff. Tons of contents out there for metal players in this area. Very little for clean, low gain players looking to become more self-sufficient in this area. Yeah, I find that a lot too. That a lot of the stuff, like you see the Fractal things and that, there's a lot of demos of kind of metal players, which I did a demo ages ago on the Fractal AXA, which I still think is a really good little unit. And that was the comment I got a lot, was it's nice to hear some clean tones, because a lot of it was just rock. Metal players really, and that's cool, but there's other music as well. Yeah, so there's a couple other things in there. Another question here, Superclass, thank you. F Mariola, I think this is, I don't know who that is, but that's the handle. Catching up with posts from now, thank you for giving us something new to think about every single day. Oh, you're welcome. Man, I like doing this everyday stuff. It's cool. It's been good for me in a lot of ways too, is doing these daily videos. I find, for one, I'm having to think about it, what I'm going to play that particular day. Everything's single, one take. I don't retake anything, as you can probably tell, full of mistakes and whatever else, because I just don't have time. If I'm going to do them every day, I do it on my phone. I'll do a studio setup to show you how this all works, but it has to be quick or I'm just not going to get time to do it. So I do one take, I'll find a backing track. Half the time I've never even listened to the backing track. I put the backing track on and I just kind of play over it, and it is what it is. I don't really edit, because it's just all being recorded via an audio interface into my phone, and then that's done. So yeah, so the every single day thing's been really good for me as well, and I hope it's been good for you. If it has, let me know. Thank you for guys. Probably talk us through your journey someday. It would be a great subject matter for a live session. Yeah, here we are. It would be great to hear about your influences, like Bergonzi, what you kept and what you threw out. Okay, so Jerry Bergonzi, the saxophone player. I wouldn't really say he's been a huge influence on me, although I'd say that book, the Melodic Rhythms book, has been a massive influence on me. That's one of the best books I've ever found. It developed my whole sense of rhythm and changed up my whole rhythm kind of perspective. But some of my influences, Robben Ford should be pretty obvious, right? I was really into him, and I remember actually once a good buddy of mine who was way more established than I was when I was starting, he came and saw me play one day, and I was a bit kind of nervous, and he came afterwards and he goes, "Man, you sounded just like Robben Ford on that blues thing." And I was kind of peed. I was like a bit pissed off about it. I was kind of like, because my whole thing was I was trying to do my own thing at that point. I was trying not to sound like Robben Ford, and it just came through anyway. He meant it with the best intentions. It was more in my head, and I was thinking, here I was trying to do my own thing, and I just came out sounding like Robben Ford, because at the time the Talk to Your Daughter album was huge for me. All that stuff, Help the Poor, amazing. Don't Let It Be Misunderstood. Man, he was killer. Love Robin Ford's playing. So Robin Ford's a big one. George Benson, when I was young, was a big one. Wes Montgomery. John Schofield should be pretty obvious to people, was a big influence on me. But all kinds of people. I mean, someone I really, really dig and have listened to a lot is Michael Landau. I do a lot of stuff based on Landau. You know, what have I done? Gotta have the volume up a little bit. But I'll do things like the certain swell type stuff. Let's get there. You know, these sorts of things that are very Landauisms. I'll do. I kind of think about how to build a solo in a similar kind of way to Landau does. He was a big influence. Larry Carlton, particularly the stuff with Steely Dan. I mean, Steely Dan in general, big influence on me. Lots of people. Stevie Wonder. You know, yeah, it's super early in New York, I'm afraid. The timing is not great. I realize that, you know, Friday evening in New Zealand is not great for people in other parts of the world. But if you're anything like me, I'm often awake at 4 in the morning or whatever, or 1 in the morning because I'm a night person, you know. But so grab a drink. If that's not appropriate for 1 in the morning, then don't do it. But you could have a glass of coffee. That would help. Yeah, so and it's interesting with influences. I've sort of found too that sometimes I go through big periods of listening to SCO, and then other times I'm like, I just can't listen to this. And the reason is if I listen to it too much, it just comes out too much in my playing. And that's not necessarily what I want, right? I've studied his music a lot, and I've been working more on my own kind of approach to it. And I think I have my own approach to it. And it's why I find it. I've had people say to me, "You sound exactly like SCO," and I'm like, really? I don't think so. I mean, the influence should be obvious, but I've got my own kind of take on it, I think. But it's definitely influenced by it, right? He's someone who was a big one. Brian May continues to be a big influence for me. I love his guitar playing. There's such a great sense of melody, all that kind of stuff. So I hope that's been useful. Glenn Haddock, great dude. Fine guitar player himself, said, "Excellent work, mate, thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you very much." That was in relation to the Thrillers Gone video. He said, "How about a session or two about outside playing that concentrate on how to start, but more importantly, how to get back inside?" Good question. Okay, so the thing is, if you're going to play outside, you need to be able to learn to play inside first. If you don't establish the inside sound, then what is outside other than just a bunch of wrong notes? So what I would say is really work on playing inside harmony, being able to play, play chord changes, play great melodies, all that sort of stuff first. Once you can do that, then you can sort of, you'll start to see where the gray areas are. And the gray areas are the areas where you can start to work outside a little bit. Right, but once you've gone out a little bit, how do you find your way back in? Well, partly that comes with experience. The more you do it, the more you'll sort of learn how to weave your way in and out. Because the thing is, when I play out, I don't really go out too far, and I don't go out constantly. Like I'll play something that's sort of an out type phrase, but I don't stay there for too long, if you know what I mean. Like it's weaving in and out, right? And the thing is, I kind of like, if I'm going to work my way back into something, what I want to do is to try and find the kind of core of what I did earlier. Sort of bookend it, right? If you start with something like a certain type of melodic idea, if I play that on the end as well, whatever I did in the middle connects the two. So if I have like a theme or like a thematic idea that's really strong here, right, that's coming at the end as well. So an example of that. Let's go. I was digging that chorus a minute ago. Say my idea is something like, I'll play that at the top and then I'll go. So there I sort of came back to my idea at the end of all that kind of craziness. It's funny, using that kind of chorusy sound reminds me of the SCO sort of thing back in the in the 90s and 2000s that he used to do. But yeah, anyway, that's definitely a big topic. Maybe I'll do a whole session on that, I think. So Simon Williams, a fellow Kiwi guitar player. I met Simon a few times, a nice chat. So we talked about the harmonic minor scale. That's part of his question here. And I covered that in a previous episode. But one thing I didn't address is he said, another thing that interests me is your use of in-ear monitors. These here are cheap 34 New Zealand dollar ones, which is about 20 bucks US. I found them on a place here called Rubber Monkey, and I thought for 34 bucks, if they break, it doesn't matter. They're actually really good. I have Shure ones as well. I like these better. They sound far better. To me, they've got better bottom end response. They're a bit bright, they're a bit harsh in the top end, and they're definitely not flat. But then, you know, I've got studio monitors if I want to do that. But I don't like wearing in-ear monitors at all. I'd much rather not use them. But in this setting, I have to be able to hear what's going on to be able to know what's happening with the microphone that's just here. You probably can't see it, but it's just out of shot as a microphone. I need to be able to hear the fractal, because literally without my in-ears, there's no sound. I'm going direct into an interface into here. So yeah, I don't like them. The main thing I hate about them more than anything is when I go like that, the cable catches on your strap or your jacket or your top or your chair or whatever, and it kind of yanks on your ear. It's horrible. The other thing too is I don't really like sound in here. I like sound here, like it creates normally, right? So even though I use a modeler a lot of the time, I still will use a speaker because I want it in the space. Because the other thing too is also too, if something's kind of getting a bit full on, I might want to move closer to the drummer and then but now with in-ears, the sound follows me everywhere. Like I say, the drummer starts like really laying down hard. I can't step away from the drum kit, when it's getting too much, because it's coming with me. I have to take them out. I have, sometimes the best solution is to have one in, one out. That tends to work. Can hear that? That's my dog outside the door. He can hear me talking. He's like, who are you talking to? Let me in. Someone asked about a video on, Joel asked about a video on minor 251s. I've put that on my list. I will actually cover that at some point, because minor 251s are a big one, especially if you're interested in jazz stuff, because they're not easy. Yeah. So Jeff in NH says, it's super early here in New York time, but wanted to check in. Question, what's your approach to playing out like Schofield does? He's a real master of playing outside notes of what you would expect. Yeah, so I kind of have addressed that a little bit before about playing out. And I've actually done an episode on this, or maybe two, about playing out. And I think it's a big one, like the whole thing of playing out is like you have to be able to establish in. But what I would say further to everything I've said so far is if we're in, say, B minor like I was before, think about what notes are in, right? Your in sounds are really like this, right? And then really maybe the 9. But think about like what would be the more intense notes. Probably C, right? So I'd consider that a very out note. Would I consider this note an out note? The flat 5? Yeah, but we're used to that on the blues scale, right? But against the root note, it's pretty tense, right? Is this note out? So think about the notes that are out in terms of degrees of out, right? You can have some that are very, very tense and some that are kind of just a little bit out, and then others that are closer to the harmony. And if you're really smart about how you use those notes, you can really pivot on them. And that's something I hear Schofield doing. And you know who was the master of that? Was Miles Davis. If you haven't listened to any Miles Davis, go and check out some of his stuff, because what he would do is he'd play the melody, and then when it came time for a solo, often he'd play his very first phrase would be something that would just really like reach out and grab you. Something surprising, like a surprising note. I mean, check out the Autumn Leaves recording with Cannonball Adderley. What he plays. G minor 6. Yet the key is really clearly should be a C minor with an E flat on it. But he went. And so Miles was a real master of kind of pivoting on those notes and sort of manipulating them to make music. And I think that's really cool. Yeah, so thanks, Jeff, for the question. And yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't find a better time to do this. I'm sort of experimenting with these lives at the moment to see what's the best time that suits the most people. Living in New Zealand, there is no great time for everyone. I mean, ideally, probably I'd do about 7 in the morning in New Zealand time, but I ain't a morning person. So maybe I should play another tune. What do you want to hear? Any particular tunes? I've actually been thinking about doing a version of Stella, like one of these recordings I do. I should play that with a track, eh? I know how that's going to come out. Let's find a backing track. Stella. By Starlight backing track. Where's one I can use? Simon Peter King. Let's do that. If you don't know Simon, good friend of mine. Simon's the man. One of my favourite musicians, period. Not only a great guitar player, but killer bass player, piano player, drummer, the whole lot. If you've heard any of Scott's bass lessons stuff, he does a lot of the backing tracks because he plays all those instruments. And actually, he did a really great album with Scott Divine. I think they called it the Divine King. I know it sounds like a religious album, but it's not. It's a jazz rock fusion album, and those guys sounded great because Scott Divine, Simon Peter King, so Divine King. Anyway, I'm gonna play a bit of Stella. Oh, I'm gonna turn the volume So that was
No, ow, it's so hot.
that was
Ow, ow.
bloody ads. That was my friend Simon Peter King's track version of Stella by Starlight backing track. Any questions that people want to know? Yeah, love Simon's playing. He's a monster. Ridiculous to think that there's a guy that does all of those instruments on those things and plays all of them so well. Here we go. Great. Oh, you made it. Awesome. That's great. What kind of practice routine did you do as a young guitar player? Okay, so when I was starting out, I started playing piano when I was about 5 or 6, like on a little kid's keyboard. I had little stickers on each of the keys, so I knew where to play. And I remember like learning that Axel Foley thing. Silly little tune. That was one that I used to play all the time. Probably used to drive my parents nuts. But I remember like that was like one of the big things was being able to like just play tunes that I recognized. So yeah, I would play stuff like that, and then at about 10, I switched to guitar, and I just started off playing whatever I did. We had a sort of a little bit of a family jam thing that used to happen in our house a lot. My stepfather was a guitarist. My brother and I learned to play guitar at the same time, so we'd play songs and we'd learn to play them together. If you can hear that whining, that's the dog out there. He wants to come in, but I'm not going to let him because he'll be a nuisance. He's distracting, and he sits on my fractal, and then he switches channels and stuff. So you have to just put up with the whining dog, I'm afraid. But then probably when I got serious about guitar, I started like practicing like longer periods of time. 2, 3, 4 hours. The longest I ever did was about 8 hours a day as a teenager. I don't know that that was overly useful to do for too long, mostly because I wasn't really that focused. A lot of it was just noodling, and I mean I was playing, but I don't think I was really improving my playing that much, right? I mean, I was, it's better than doing nothing. But after that, what I did was I actually made up a practice routine, and I was really scheduled and regimented about it. And I actually got better in that period than I did the period before. The other thing too is when I had strategy, so I had various teachers over the time, but when I had like the best of the teachers that I had, what they gave me a real focus, that's when I improved more than anything else. Because some things I'd kind of stumble upon by myself, and that's useful, but they'd show me something that might have taken me a year to figure out on my own. And that was so when I had a couple of Caleb Pritchard in particular, probably my main guitar teacher I've had through my life, probably for the longest, he was someone who kind of opened my eyes to all kinds of stuff musically and took me in all kinds of new directions. Thanks, Gary. Says, nice playing, just found your channel today. Thank you so much. Anything you want to hear in particular, Gary? I really like that sound. So at the moment, that's a Fender amp in the Fractal, the FM9. This is what I always use in my studio here. Not these, despite them being in shot. And I like having a little bit of delay. What I'm looking for in the delays is 4 repeats. Right, that's what I'm looking for. And that's actually a pretty heavy driven sound. But turn it down. And that's where you get the complexity of sound, I think. Because now it's, I mean, you're hearing my microphone at the moment because I'm speaking, but there's a bit of bite to that sound. Like think about a tenor saxophone. When a tenor saxophone player plays, they don't if they were to blow hard into the horn, it would kind of go and distort a little bit, kind of thing. So, yeah. Do you dampen the strings? This is Eddie says, do you dampen the strings with your right hand close to the bridge? So I rest my palm on here sometimes, although lately I've been trying to change my technique to actually lift my hand off more. I think especially for faster stuff, like if I try and play, say, a single C note and I try and rest my palm, there's a certain angle that it wants to go on. But if I lift my palm, I'm not trying to play cleanly, I'm just trying to play like a tremolo pick. So I've kind of been changing that a little bit, but most of the time I do rest my palm there. I'm not actually muting, I'm just kind of resting my hand there. The other thing I've been thinking about is what to do with these other fingers. You know, do you do that? Do you do that? I'm not sure actually on that one. I saw this thing of Rick Graham playing the other day, and that guy's got monster speed. You know, technically he's ridiculous. I'm not crazy about a lot of the music he plays, but that's just my taste. But from a technical perspective, he's really got it. You know what I mean? And he plays like this, and he also does a little bit of this in the fingers. And I was like, oh, well, maybe there's something in there. So I've kind of been thinking about it a lot. See how loud this guitar is? Yeah, so I kind of rest my hand around there is what I guess the easiest way to explain it. What string gauge do you use? 11 to 49s pretty much on everything. I have one guitar, which is my dirty old Squier Strat there, which has 10s on it. That guitar sounds better with 10s. This guitar here I think would probably sound better with 10s on it, the Talman. I have 11s on it now, and it's actually kind of hard to play this guitar. I'll swap over for a bunch of things, but I think that's one of the benefits of it. I'm just going to swap here. Okay, so cheers folks, it's Friday night in Wellington, so glass of wine. There we go. Right, let's get it in tune. This guitar actually holds really good tuning, but as you can probably tell by what I'm wearing, it's blooming cold here at the moment. Temperature's really dropped. Because being in the southern hemisphere, we're heading into winter. It's almost winter now, whereas, you know, northern hemisphere friends probably look at it and go, wow, it's crazy that it's so cold. So this is 11 to 49s on it as well. This is kind of a harder guitar to play than that guitar because it's a longer scale. It's 25 and a half, whatever the Fender scale is, but also it's got a smaller nut size. It's got more like a typical Fender, and I prefer the wider nut, like a Gibson style, like this guitar, you know. So I find that, you know, with this guitar, everything's a little more bunched, and also with the longer scale, so I find the longer scale means that there's a bit more tension on it to bend, but that's actually a good thing on this guitar, because when I play this guitar, most of the time I'm playing that sort of rhythm stuff, you know what I mean? And having that extra tension gives you a bit more bite. So yeah, so I'm actually going to use this quite a bit on the Sports Award gig next week, because I've got a lot of this stuff. And it's pretty hard to beat that in that setting with some chorus for that sort of thing. We're doing Queen and we're doing Tina Turner. There's Tina Turner medley and different stuff like that. So, hey man, have you ever worked on any of the Ted Green books? Any favorite chord books that you like suggest? Yeah, so Chord Chemistry was one of those books. I remember when my guitar teacher gave me that book, he only photocopied me the first half of the book, the chord reference stuff. He didn't photocopy the stuff at the end, which is actually some of the best stuff. Later on, I found all that extra stuff and I went, hey, hang on, what the? And I had to go back and learn all that stuff. I don't think he did it on purpose, I don't know. But yeah, the Chord Chemistry book by Ted Green is brilliant. I mean, that's great. I didn't know that the chord reference chart stuff is that useful to have like 10,000 ways of playing E. Maybe it is. The more important thing is that you figure out how to play those chords for yourself than use a reference book. Do you know what I mean? Like if I want to find E, I'll go, okay, well here's an E chord, right? I can also play it like this. I can play it like this. I can play it like this. Right? right? How many different ways can I find my own thinking, right? But that's it without even really getting into more spread voicings, things like, that sort of stuff, or triads, that sort of stuff. So I find that that being able to figure it out for yourself is a better way to go about it. But the second half of that book is particularly good. Any favorite chord books? That's really been the only one that I've found that's been a really useful chord book. Although the Mel Bay Book of Music and Theory is a really good one. It's more a theory book, but most theory books are usually written with piano players in mind. It makes sense because piano is a far superior instrument when it comes to theory, because it's all laid out there. You have essentially you could have 10 notes. So for something like a 13th chord, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, sharp 11, 13, 7 notes. A piano player can easily play 7 notes. We only have 6 strings. Right? So no matter what, we can't play an actual 13th chord. Something has to give. But that's what's great about that Mel Bay book I was just talking about, is that he, I forget who the author is, all the chord, it's all laid out, everything that's in there you can play on a guitar. They have chord, it's theory, but it's theory from a guitar player's perspective. So that's been a good one for chords. Yeah, but there's so many good books out there. The Real Book's a useful one to have if you haven't got that. What else is on my shelf up there? Totally Guitar, The Definitive Guide. That's a pretty useful kind of book in some ways. The Modern Methods for Guitar by William Levitt, Berkeley series. Volumes 1, 2, 3. You can now buy that as a complete book. When I bought it, it was just a single book. That's actually a good book. Some students use it for reading. I don't know if it's particularly that useful for that myself. I mean, maybe it is. There's better things for reading, maybe some classical guitar stuff or whatever. But the more useful thing for that is it's just good. There's lots of good information in there that you could steal and use. Maybe I should discuss some of that stuff in a future episode. What else is on my shelf? Oh, the Bob Mintzer books, Jazz and Funk Etudes. I found those pretty useful, mostly because they came with backing tracks. And when I discovered those, you couldn't really get a lot of backing tracks like you could now. So they came with a CD. You put the CD in and it was proper players. I think Peter Erskine's on some of them, that sort of level of player, playing the tracks along with him. You got a version with Bob playing the lines, and then you could do it yourself. I found those really good, but they're quite hard. Even the simple book is, I think it calls it 14 Jazz and Funk Etudes or whatever it is. Even that's pretty challenging, because it's all written in C, and then there's just a million accidentals. He doesn't write them in the keys. Yeah. Any other questions? Any songs you want to hear? I should play that. I wonder if there's a backing track for that. Let me see. So that's Groovelation, the John Scofield tune. Yeah, seem to have found one. Don't know what it's like. Let's see. Oh, ads. Don't just hate ads. So that was Groovelation, John Schofield, and that was just a backing track that I found on YouTube. Yeah, interesting. That backing track, there was kind of no setup for coming back into the head, but I heard the organ go da 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 da, so I was like, oh, that's where we are. All right, okay. That's kind of how it goes when you play the backing tracks. You have no control over what's going on. Oh no worries. Would you like to hear? Would love to hear On Green Dolphin Street. Yeah, sure, I can play that tune. Let's do that. Let me swap over guitars. Thanks so much to everyone who's tuned in. I really appreciate you all coming in to see what I'm up to here. As I said earlier, I'm kind of thinking about doing some more regular stuff with these live streams. I quite like the whole live format. It's kind of, it's just flowing and can respond to people in real time wherever they are. Yeah, I think it's a great way of doing it. So I'm just going to tune. But not quite sure I found the best day. Friday night's not the time to do it. I just happen to have no gig tonight. Next gig is this Sunday at the Wellington Jazz Club for those in New Zealand. We'll be playing a set of originals. So I don't do very many gigs where I play originals. Sorry, 2 sets of originals. I've got a quintet together to do it: saxophone, guitar, bass, piano, drums, and great musicians. And we're playing the Wellington Jazz Club at Meow. Should be fun. I don't get to do that stuff very often, and I can be quite open about what I'm going to play there. It's not going to be. It doesn't have to be accessible. It can be edgy, and it'll work, and it will be edgy. We're going to take it some places, that's for sure. But yeah, I don't do that very often, not nearly enough. I was talking to a friend earlier today. Actually, he has a gig tonight. John Kingston, JK, great guy, really good musician too. Very interesting kind of music, soundscapey, atmospheric, moody, different things, but then a rock undertow, lots of effects. He's really interesting. I like his playing a lot. But he's got a gig tonight, and I'm going to try and pop down there later and see it if I can. But he was saying he doesn't play his originals very often, and I was thinking, yeah, I kind of don't either. So let me see if I can find a backing track for Green Dolphin Street. Man, I haven't played this since forever. Let's see how much of it I can remember. This is probably going to be really bad, especially when I get to the B sections, but the B and D sections. But we'll see. All right. What key is that in? No, that's in C. E flat. Okay. I've never played Green Dolphin Street in E flat before. Yeah, the original was in E flat, you're right, but I've never actually played it. Everybody plays it in C, and when I learnt it in C. So let's see if I can play it in E flat. So it's probably going to be worse than the other one was. So that was Green Dolphin Street in E flat, which I have not done before. There's something quite interesting about doing stuff in front of people that you've never done before. Musically, I mean. Oh, thank you. Glad you liked it. Yeah, so that's a cool tune actually. There's some interesting things in it, you know. E flat, flat minor, and this. And the thing is, because if you learn tunes in one key, you can pretty much play them in every key, right? If you learn them properly. So the way I'm looking at that is like 1, right? 1 of the key, 1 minor, and then 2 over 1, then flat 2 over 1, then 1, right? And then we go 2, 5, 1. Then we go to the 4 chord and it becomes a minor, right? So minor 4, and then I go, essentially that becomes 2, 5, 1, 2, 5, 1, and then back, same as before. And then the bridge is 2, and it steps down. Right, that's all just sequence, right? So F minor, so 2, 2, then descends down, and then a minor 2, 5, 1 to lead you to that. This is how I see it. And then that's from there, and then, all right, and then 2, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. And often on the 1 on the end there, I have to put that in. Joe Pass Blues. Well, I did transcribe some Joe Pass Blues a long time ago, but I don't know that I'd really be able to remember it, to be honest. And I just butcher it, and that would be even worse than trying to play Green Dolphin Street in another key. Cheers, everyone. I hope you don't mind the whinging dog out there. I'm not going to let him in. I know he wants to come in, but he has a bad tendency of tripping over the camera or my pedals or stuff, and when you're doing a live stream, it's not particularly great. But I can play a blues for you. Want me to play a blues? Why don't I do that? I haven't played a blues yet. That's part of this. Let's find a blues organ track. That one I just played to, that guy has some pretty cool tracks, actually. Paul... What's his name? Paul Wilkinson. Phil Wilkinson Music. Phil Wilkinson Music. I really like his tracks. It's organ and drums, basically, so probably my favorite format. So this is, he calls this Greasy Jazz Blues in C. My iPad's about to run out of juice too, but hopefully it lasts. I play the stuff off my iPad and that connects into the audio interface anyway. Okay. I love that dog. He's great, but he's a pain in the butt too. It's like having children again. You know, I have a 14-year-old now, so she's largely independent. But when it's like having a baby, it's having a dog. He's awesome though, but full on. Ah, that's what I meant to play. So yeah, that was Greasy Jazz Blues and C by Phil Wilkinson Music. I really like his tracks. Like I mentioned, they're good ones because it's a real player. It feels to me like real drums. There's a vibe, you know what I mean, and I'm into it. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and ideas. This is from Pat Boyce. Malbay Books, he. I ended up figuring out different ways to play E, and I'm glad you mentioned finding out different ways for yourself. Yeah, that's kind of the big thing, isn't it? Just figuring it out for yourself. So it's a BB. Do you mean BB or had that? Do you mean B flat? It wasn't C, but yeah, and BB King is pretty close to what I'm into a lot of the times, you know. BB and King. There you go. BB played that box sound. So if we're in C, if you play this, that's kind of a lot of what he did. course, the classic BB. Hit the octave. And I mean, so many times you see him in videos and he goes, whoa! You know what I mean? And then BB, I mean, the thing that made BB so great was phrasing. You know, to me, when I hear BB playing guitar, especially when he was young, you know, that stuff like in Africa, that one where Muhammad Ali is in the audience, killer. It's like his phrasing is just, it's like someone singing through the guitar. He doesn't play anything complex, but the thing with it is it's just, it's so musical that it just knocks me out every time I hear it. And that's kind of the thing that I'm into, right? To be honest. I don't care how fast somebody can play, you know, unless that's like something that's really going to move me, then that's cool. But if it's fast for the sake of fast, or legato for the sake of legato, or if it's flash chords for the sake of flash chords, you know, and then sometimes I hear that stuff and I go, okay, it's clever, great. And then I hear BB kind of wail on 2 or 3 notes and I go, whoa, you know, just knocks you on your ass. Simon, hey, went to look for the link you posted to a backing track and saw you doing this live thing. I'm now watching and listening and doing your thing. Very cool. Hey, Simon, yeah, thanks. I answered your question earlier too, so it's a bummer you missed the earlier part about in-ear monitors and my thoughts. I don't like them. But, you know, needs must. Yeah, great backing track indeed. Yeah, it is. It's really, just, the thing is, like, it's feel. That Robin Ford track I played to the other day, the one that was like Talk to Your Daughter. I don't know if you've seen that. If you haven't, go back and watch it, because that's a cool track and I enjoy playing over that. But I looked in the comments section and someone said, oh, I didn't enjoy the sloppy drumming. And I thought, what are you talking about? Sloppy drumming? Oh, you mean it's not quantized like a metronome? It was like, it was playing beautifully. And I think it's the actual Robin Ford band that made that track. Well, it used to be in an old guitarist magazine, I believe. And you know, he's playing a shuffle, and it just feels fantastic. And so that's why I wanted to record that track, because that track playing over that felt great. And yet someone was like, you know, it was like sloppy drumming. I guess that's the internet for you, isn't it? That one person will love something and another person will absolutely hate it, and that's totally cool. Anyway, I'm going to sign out in a minute, people. So any quick questions before I go, because I've got a couple of other things I have to do tonight before, and it's almost 9 o'clock. Well, it is 9 o'clock. It's 10 past 9 on a Friday night. And this wine needs to be drunk. Yeah, it's a Friday night, so I figure I can have a glass of wine, can't I? I'm only going to have one. Not much of a drinker these days. I drink, like, you know, I'll have a drink at a gig, I'll have a drink with dinner or whatever, or a wine like this, but I don't really like, I'm not someone who boozes. Please do these more often. Yeah, I will. I'm thinking, trying to find a time slot where it works in a day. I'm kind of thinking late Mondays might work. Not so good for certain places, but or maybe even Sunday. Actually, a Sunday night in New Zealand would be a Saturday elsewhere in the US. That could be a good one. Yeah. Any more questions quickly before I sign out? This works that AMIS or AMIS are asleep. Not sure what that means, but anyway, thanks so much for tuning in, people. I really appreciate you all being here. I like doing these lives. This is fun. So I've got a couple of cool videos, just a heads up on those that are coming. There's one with this Kurt Rosenwinkel kind of exercise about working on minor pentatonics. Well, I kind of took it to minor pentatonics. I think he was talking about minor pentatonics. Might have been Dorian. But I think it was minor pentatonics. But it's a really cool exercise. Another way of kind of developing a deeper knowledge of that. Some stuff about guitars, specifically these guitars that I play. These two. Because these are what I'm going to use on the Sports Awards. Interesting that these are both Sunburst, even though two different types of Sunburst. I seem to end up with a lot of Sunburst guitars for some reason. I don't know why. I actually think Sunburst, I kind of think it's kind of the most boring color. To me, it's like a standard thing. I like this Sunburst better than this one with the red in it. This is, I've heard this called Tobacco Burst, which was something Gibson used to do on their Les Pauls. It's got less red in it. It was a pleasant surprise waking up to here in PNW Seattle. Oh, Seattle. I've always wanted to go there. I played with this really killer trumpet player from Seattle, a guy called Alan Vizzuti. And we were actually talking about doing some gigs, and he was looking at getting a cruise ship contract or something, and his wife plays really good piano. And we were thinking about doing a guitar piano thing, and Alan playing trumpet. And that dude's ridiculous. I remember the first night we played was it with an orchestra, and he came out, and he's this skinny little Italian dude, right? And Alan Vizzuti, and he comes out, and Italian American, and he comes out and he just hits the most ridiculously high notes, like this kind of register. And he just comes out, and it's not like, you'd see trumpet players hit really high notes and they kind of go, and then it goes. No, he just went, well, it was like nothing to him. It was like, bang, this note comes out perfectly in tune, big full sound. He has ridiculous classical chops. He has ridiculous jazz chops. That guy can play anything. He's crazy. But yeah, he's from Seattle, and I remember him talking about doing some gigs, and it never really happened. But I remember him telling me how great Seattle was. So I'd like to go there one day, hopefully. I will be in the US next year in January. I'm planning to go to the NAMM show, which is January, I think the end of January. Haven't been to the NAMM show for a long time, and I think it's time now to go. One of my dearest friends is in Alaska, so we're going to go up and see her in Alaska. I was talking to someone about the possibility of going to Sweetwater. If I can do that and do a workshop up there, would be really cool. I don't know how that's going to work with visas and all kinds of stuff like that, and also the time and the expense. Probably going to go to New York because we've got family in that area. My wife will want to go to New York, and I love New York. It's my favorite city. So yeah, that'll be so Sunburst has always been the classic electric guitar for me. It's a bit like Triumph was the epitome of the motorbike. Yeah, totally agree. I think that's probably why I kind of prefer more colorful guitars now, because it's so embedded as a classic look. It's nice to have something more modern. Anyway, I'm going to sign out. Thank you so much for tuning in, everyone. You're awesome. I appreciate everybody's comments and support for all that I do here with my channel. You all rock. And if there's anything I can do to help with your guitar playing or your music, or anything you want me to do a cover of, or things like that I can do that helps, more than happy to do it. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I really appreciate you. Cheers, take care, bye.